Hey, Binghamton University. My name is Nicole. I'm here with Eddie, who is the graduate assistant at the LGBTQ+ living community at Newing, and it's time to be real. So Eddie, it's so great to have you.
Hi.
I want to start off by saying I hope you had a good morning. So we're just gonna start off with like some simple question of just tell me about yourself. Tell me about introducing yourself to the Binghamton University community and things like that.
Well, hi Binghamton. My name is Eddie. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a second-year master's student in the Student Affairs Administration, graduating in May. And I'm the LGBTQ Living Community Graduate Assistant, which is a position split between residential life and the Q Center. Additionally, I'm also the president of OASIS, our Queer Graduate Student Association, and I'm also on the Graduate Students and New Professionals Community Practice Directorate Board within ACPA, which is a national student affairs organization.
That's great. Congrats on your accomplishments.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to see if you could kind of share more about your graduate assistant position in the New England LGBT+ living community.
Yeah.
If you can tell any success stories or some challenges you faced and how you kind of overcame those challenges as well.
Yeah, well, so I think the biggest thing is it's a brand new position. It started last year and it started with me. And you never know how those positions are gonna go because you don't know how the students are gonna, interact. And so I feel like that was the biggest challenge of like finding a direction, because a lot of what I do is connecting students with resources at the Q Center, planning events to help foster community, as well as provide resources and support for the rest of New England College and on-campus residents. So I think the biggest challenge with that is just trying to get my name out there, trying to build this thing from scratch. I feel like that's a big challenge. A success, I feel like I get to see the first group of students kind of like find their path at Binghamton. Some of them have gone on to be SSAs and CAs, and some of them have, are already like club presidents and on different boards, and I feel like that makes me really proud. And seeing this new group of students kind of find their own way, like that's something that I really like, especially because I feel like I'm a part of that when they share that with me. So yeah.
Following in your footsteps, having your influence, I think that's great.
I don't know, following my footsteps, because some of them are doing things that I couldn't even dream of, but I'm just along for the ride, and I love that I get to be a small part of their university journey.
That's great. I mean, you're a big part actually, so
Oh.
that's amazing. So what advice, you work with a bunch of students, especially in first years, we're kind of in this really big community, can't really like find their place right at the bat, which is totally great and normal. So what advice would you give to students who are kind of looking to like belong and build a strong connection to the people in the community as well as just the university and finding their place?
I feel like the first thing you gotta do is it's gotta be like a little bit of experimentation in terms of go to places that you like organizations and student organizations that like interest you. Go to things that are outside your comfort zone. If you weren't heavily involved in queer community in high school, this is your chance to do it. We have so many queer organizations on campus, and we have like places like the Q Center and the MRC, and so really like find things in your comfort zone, but also don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and just find what your niche is, because that's where you're going to find people. Because I think the biggest misconception is that people you meet in your first year are going to be your lifelong friends, and for a lot of people that's true. For me, that wasn't true. We're still like acquaintances, but it's not like
Your community.
It's not my community. But I think that's the best part of college is you meet people and you grow with that person, and sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think that's amazing. I think it's kind of beautiful, especially in the queer community where there's so many like different identities and different experiences. You get to learn from other people and grow together. And places like the Q Center and the MRC and organizations such as Shades and RPU and Transcend and OSTEM and Cachette, like those are all places where people can come together from different backgrounds, and that's amazing. Yeah. So don't be afraid to branch out.
Well, that's well. You. Can you kind of tell me about what kind of made you kind of be so passionate about LGBTQ plus advocacy, like your own inner like passions, how that kind of like how you got to that point where you realized, yes, this is what I want to work with. And you can bring in your experience from here, as well as you mentioned your national organization and all the other things you're part of, and spotlighting that, and those probably maybe being an influencer, what motivated you.
Yeah, I mean, I am still kind of new to a lot of advocacy work, because I was in places growing up that like I didn't feel super connected to community. For context, I grew up in like the South. I came out in Louisville, Kentucky, which was really scary. I had supportive people around me, but it was still like I was riddled with anxiety of like going out and like going on a date with a guy was just like the scariest thing. And that kind of followed into college a bit, where I started to figure out more about my identity, but I really wasn't involved in queer culture. And one summer, I worked at Interlochen Arts Camp. Shout out to the girlies. Hi. And that's in Michigan. It's an arts camp for like 12 people as young as 12 to students as old as 19. And they wanted to create a ally cabin, like a LGBTQ plus an ally cabin. And I took the responsibility of being one of the counselors for that, and that's kind of where I found my passion a little bit, because I liked sharing my experience with my campers, and it felt really freeing to finally like open up about a lot of experiences. I also felt like for a lot of campers, like it helped having me who could relate to them. I had a camper like on my last day actually tell me like, oh, I never thought I was gonna have a counselor who like was like me, and what they meant was a counselor who was gay, because I was able to like help talk to them about like a lot of different things in terms of dating and things to look out for, because you know I was at 21 at the time, and this kid was going into college, and I was like, these are the mistakes I made, and being able to be open about that with students, I felt like was really freeing for myself, and I felt like they really got a lot out of it, and so that kind of sparked my passion for that, to the point where when I applied to this job, they really liked that experience that I just talked about, because it showed that I was able to relate to people in the community and outside the community. And when I realized that was something I enjoyed doing, and then I started to eat this job, that's kind of how the trajectory went. It just kind of took over. Because, you know, there's the light stuff that's like, you know, talking about like dating in a world that's not always super inclusive, and talking about living situations. But then you get into the nitty gritty of realizing a lot of things that are wrong with it, especially like are wrong with the world, including like transphobia, that's going rampant in the country right now. Homophobia is still there. At the Q Center, we get to talk about like sexual health, and like we do pretty regularly scheduled STI testing, and so being at the Q Center has kind of really enhanced my passions a little bit more, because it started as a way just of me being able to talk to people within the community about other issues within the community, but now being able to like do that on a larger scale has really been amazing. But also a lot of that I've noticed, especially since being here, has come from my family. I'm the middle child, and all three of us are gay.
Okay.
So my older sister is bisexual, and my younger brother is trans and aro-ace. And being able to see the world from their eyes has made me a little bit more passionate about sharing I'm sorry. Making that their identities have really shaped interests I have. So, you know, I've done a few presentations about like biphobia and what that looks like, because that is very common within the community. People not wanting to date someone who's bisexual because of all these preconceived notions, and then also a lot of people have hang-ups of dating people who are trans, and there's also just a lot of transphobia in the queer community, and so being able to take that experience of like having siblings who identify that way and being able to focus that into things I'm doing in class and things I'm doing at work, it's been really, that's what keeps me going, I should say.
No, I think everything you said, definitely makes sense. I'm glad you found like a motivating force, and also having that, being able to kind of apply that personal story to like what you work here now, and you also personally reaching out to people. I think that's just great. I think what you do is amazing. I think, you know, thank you so much for sharing something that's really personal as well, like with your family, about yourself, and, you know, feeling safe as well, and making other people feel safe. So, you know, just wanted to, you know, you're a graduate student, seeking their master's, and that could be a very tough and stressful situation, but, you know, doing that also with all your positions and all the things you're involved with, like, how do you kind of, you know, what motivates yourself, what kind of keeps you going, how do you, like, balance those?
Ooh, oh my god, so balance, I feel like, I remember going to a conference when they talked about balance is a myth. Because you're always going to need to, you know, put more energy in one place than another place. They were more talking about like work-life balance, so I feel like in grad school where it's a work-life school balance, and I feel like most students can relate to that as well. It's all about just focusing on what your priorities are, because it's a day-by-day situation. You gotta focus on what you can do. What are some things you can like maybe hold off on for like a little bit, and what are things that like are back burner, you know, I need to do this, but like right now it's not a priority. And a lot of times that's like just sitting down in the morning and writing out everything I gotta do for that day. Because to write out, I found out writing everything that I need to do for a week became overwhelming, because I have meetings and classes and office time. And so looking at a calendar in a week can get really overwhelming and really mess with your mental health a bit. So every day, just like sit down, have a little like meeting with yourself and talk about like what you're doing that day. And then also making sure you're saving time for yourself. I think that's like the biggest thing I've noticed, is when you're trying to strive for that like balance, or I should probably call it like a work-life school agreement.
That's new, but
like a work-life school agreement, because like it's never going to be balanced. But if it can work for you, like instead of, you know, doing like a 50-50 split, I'm factoring school and work in the same thing. But it maybe one day it's going to be 70-30, one day it's going to be, you know, 40-60, like just making sure you're giving time for yourself, because the life part doesn't stop just because you're in school and just because you're at work. Something that motivates me, when I realized that was something I enjoyed doing, and then I started to this job, that's kind of how the trajectory went. It just kind of took over.
It's like, oh, you know, working on more a day-by-day schedule, because I've always experienced that whole like, oh, write out your week beforehand, like on a Sunday, and I'm just like, you know, we don't know what the day will take us. So I definitely think the day-by-day, checking yourself every single day is such a great kind of way to counteract and kind of changing from work-life balance to work-life agreement. Because I definitely feel like as someone who's busy as well, you know, that isn't always going to be balanced. And the struggle of trying to give so much more time to something that might maybe get so afraid. And you know, sort of like father, you know, that's something very vulnerable to share, but I'm happy that's your motivator as well. I just know that, you know, he's proud to see you every single step, not even just the finish line, but that you got it, and you know, we're all proud of you basically. So yeah, that's great. Oh, sorry. So, you know, talking about motivation, also talking about, you know, like those successes you've seen and, you know, overcoming challenges in your work. What are kind of like some of the most valuable lessons you kind of learned from working in students in FAIR and regarding to like advocacy? And you can bring in your experience from like other things, not even just here at Davidson, because I know you're very involved in other, like back then, campuses in, you know, Wisconsin and things like that.
Oh my gosh, all the lore. I think, so okay, for context, for the people who don't know, I was a resident assistant at SUNY Fredonia for 5 semesters. I also worked at Interlochen Arts Campus, I mentioned earlier. I also, as well as University of Wisconsin's pre-college program in Madison. Also Badger, that's Badger Pre-College in Wisconsin. Boston College Experience, which is Boston College's pre-college program, and now here at Binghamton. And so a lot of that has to do with like event planning and also working with people. Something I've learned is you can't measure your success based on other people. And that means that I say that to mean when you're planning events for people to come to electively, you can't always focus on how many people show up, but I'm trying to, this is something I still work on, fixing your mindset to be like, okay, so 3 people showed up, what did they get out of it? And measuring your success that way.
So would you say like measuring engagement rather than
Exactly. Yeah. Qualitative versus quantitative. Like I think what are students getting out of it versus how many students are going. Because you get a lot of people, but if they're not taking anything away from whatever you're doing, it's not going to work. Also, when you're working with people, like it's not one size fits all type of situation. Like you have to adapt the ways you work sometimes, and it also specifically works with when you're on a team, but also like if you're supervising, you gotta figure out how to communicate with that person better, because, or in a way that fits both people, because when you're working out on a team, it's a team effort. It's not like individual, and you can be like, okay, well, you need to understand what I'm saying, because they can be thinking the same thing. So it's all about collaboration and how that works in terms of your communication styles. So that's what I would probably, as lessons. In terms of advocacy, I feel like it's okay to not to know what you're doing. Like, I feel like the word advocacy and like being an advocate can look so many different ways. And finding a way that is comfortable for you, accessible for you, realistic for you, is the best thing. And just being patient with yourself, because even for me, I was always like scared of going out to protests because I would see everything like on the news of like people getting arrested and stuff happening, and that was always so scary. But I let that fear kind of stop me from like speaking out on certain things. Can't be afraid of that. Like because that's how things keep happening. It's when you stop talking about it. So you have to like be willing to work with yourself and be like, this is scaring me, but why? Like, is it because it's a scary situation, or is it because I'm afraid to do something about it? Like, what's and that's something we're talking about in our classes is the importance of speaking out when you see something's going wrong, or either something you feel like you should say, but also speaking out versus staying silent, but then also listening versus staying silent, because they look very different. Because listening and taking in all the information is just as powerful as speaking out. Because if everybody's talking, no one's listening. But if you're just continuing to stay silent on things relating to advocacy, relating this back to like my work, relating this back to my work, like if I'm seeing people in the Q Center saying something that is like offensive to people of certain identities, correcting that in the space is better, because when you're in a space that's inclusive or supportive, inviting someone into that conversation rather, I feel like it makes sense. Inviting someone into that conversation rather than calling someone out in a way that's coming from a place of concern and support, that I feel like does miles better than just like they calling someone out. That's something we talk about in my res life training a lot. That's something we talk about in classes a lot. Invite people into conversations, because we live in a society where there's people who get really defensive or calling out, and that stops learning from happening. So don't be afraid to call people out on something, or not calling people out, inviting people in on something. Even if you don't know exactly like the best way to say it, you're not perfect. it's okay. It all it takes is a conversation. All it takes. And as a starting point. But like conversations. And you can have a conversation. Like we're having a conversation right now. Like
You know, as a college student, you have to talk.
you have to talk. And like sometimes it's really uncomfortable. Especially like especially when it comes to situations where you feel like you're fearing for yourself in terms of maybe your physical safety, if it's fear of retaliation or anything, like it can be scary. Like I'm not trying to dismiss that, but being patient with yourself is the best way, because we're all on our journeys, we're all learning. Like
No,
this
you're good.
all this sounds.
Yeah, no, but that answer was really amazing too. I liked your point about listening rather than always talking, because I feel like as an advocate and for advocacy, you want to uplift voices too, and like uplifting voices as an advocate is also important as talking as well. And I also liked your point of the inviting rather than calling out, because a lot of people think calling out is like the best way, but people react very differently from being called out, especially people who might not know when they're in the wrong. So the education, the bringing in is something like that's very teachable and very important to know. So that's good. Yeah. So you touched about teamwork and communication, and also just leadership and leadership. And like, how would you say that kind of helped you with your work with helping people in the living community feel like they truly belong? How does teamwork, team leadership, things like that, those skills and experience that you've had highly experience and rapidly trained, help you kind of help people like first coming students feel like they belong on this campus?
I feel like the first thing I like to do is kind of address my position, because yes, I am like I have a position in terms of I oversee the living community, but I'm also a student. Like I don't have really any kind of power. I'm not I just acknowledging the power dynamic. I was trying to let people know like yes, I have this position, but I'm also a student. I'm chill. Like it doesn't have to be I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
Just saying that out loud was because I'm chill. Just like being able to like what I feel like is putting them at ease when I say stuff like that. Like I'm like, you can talk to me about anything. It doesn't have to be like anything super specific. It doesn't like if you're like, hey Eddie, like I just watched a really cool movie. Amazing. Because I feel like there's this like it can be scary to see a person like as an adult be like, I know we work with a living community, and people are like, oh, so like, I'm concerned when you're with this person. I was just like, if you're like, Eddie, I'm going out on Tuesday night. Okay, perfect. As long as you're like being safe, I don't, maybe that's not what I should be saying.
No, that's totally great. I mean, I love the relatability. It's true, as a GA, you're dealing with students with different life and different experiences.
Yeah.
And I feel like you really just want them to feel comfortable to share with you, because where else can they share that, especially in this new school environment with people they might not know if they can trust, and honestly, they can trust you and you're here for them. So I think like that example, even if it might not be the most, I still think it was a great example, and I think it's a relatable example, like at the most too.
You're making what I say sound so much better.
It's like that. But yeah, I know, but I kind of liked like you're talking about how you're here, you're open to different people, and you're a student too, and I think that's a lot like the power dynamic, like touching on that, like people think just because someone's in a high power, that's kind of not always applicable, but for people who are like GAs or CAs, some people are like, oh, they're not people I can really go to because they're this and that, but really we're all students, we're all learning, we're all trying our best, and I like that you touched on that, and that kind of like making people feel safe and comfortable, and that you can be a friend to them too.
Yeah.
Because you are a great friend. You're a great person, and he's a great friend as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
But is there possibly like an experience you can share that you remember in your work here at Binghamton, or just honestly anywhere where you kind of
But I guess that'll be more like.
Think about it.
Oh my god, there's so many. Well, I mean, I feel like the best part is when I see students at events. Because yes, sometimes I'm working those Q Center events, but I like to just be
Wow.
goofy with it, and I feel like that opens students up more.
Mhm.
I can't think of the specific example. I'm so sorry, but something that I always I saw happen last year, I saw happen this year, is when at the beginning of the semester, when like the new students come in, we have a lot of like youth center events that we host, and it was more so relevant this year where like I was more comfortable already on campus, whereas last year I was brand new to campus, brand new to everything. I was like, but just like taking the time to be in my events, just being myself, I feel like opens them up a little bit more because people know when you're not being authentic. Like I think that is like the name of the game essentially, in terms of like what work I do or the work we do at the Youth Center. It's all about authenticity because we're all going through the same stuff. We're all trying to figure out our identities, which can be a lot. Figuring out like everything, and I feel like there's so much pressure in college to figure out everything about yourself. So just being authentic is the best thing. And every time I see students coming into an event for the first time, and I'm just being myself, I can see them start to be a little bit more like relaxed. I mean, I hosted a karaoke event a few weeks ago with one of my students. Like we sang Chapel Rum, we sang Taylor Swift, and that was like a really good moment because I was like, see, like I'm in this position where I'm supposed to where I'm guiding, I would say, like students and helping them connect to things on campus. But I'm also here to have fun, and I'm here to help students have fun. Because that's college is supposed to be fun.
I like you're talking about being your authentic self, because a lot of people think when you're in so many positions and stuff like that, you think you have to be a certain way, you have to be very serious. But I feel like when you're just yourself, and you're your great self, by the way, you're able to kind of get people to open up a little more than just being super stoic and just like straight up and stuff, and just being more relaxed. And I like that. You can also have fun as a GA and as you always have to be serious. When there are times where you have to be professional, obviously, but you've talked about like honestly when it comes to reach out to students, being fun and loose and just relaxed is honestly the best way to do it. And I think that's a great lesson to learn from you. So we've talked so much about your experiences in the careers and all your amazing accomplishments and things and other lessons. So like, has there ever been like something? What would you think is the most fulfilling part of your career? And this could be one or many things, or
I mean, I feel like the students make it all worth it for me, and that is also just like not just the students in the LC, like the living community, because like seeing them grow has been so fulfilling. Just to be like thinking about where a lot of the students were at the beginning and now where they are, especially now that we're in our second year, and I still keep in touch with a lot of the students from last year and seeing where they've gone is really something that makes me feel really like fulfilled with it. But also trying to see that with my current students as well, because a lot of them, some of them hit the ground running, and others they kind of take their time to get there, and it's really cool to see that, and just having that moment of like they did it, and that's been really amazing. But also working with the student staff has been really cool, especially because I came to Binghamton right after my undergrad, where I was a student staff member for residential life, and so I was them not that long ago. And so being able to work with a few of the staff members last year and also this year, and seeing them grow as well has been really amazing too. But it's that bond that I feel like at least I've become a mentor, even if that's just me saying it. I like to think of myself like that for at least those student staff members who work with the living community, because I've seen them grow. I mean, there was one SSA in particular who she was brand new to the position last year, and so was I, and the living community started, and she was on the floor, and so we were kind of growing together in terms of we were both trying to figure out what our positions are and how they fit, and so seeing where she is now is amazing. So her name is Sophia. Shout out to her. Absolutely love her. but yeah, seeing like a lot of the student staff, also the Q Center.
Yeah.
Guys, like from Soji to Soji lead, like
Yeah.
just seeing all the Q Center staff like become more confident in themselves and in the way that they approach this position, because the Q Center has so many things to offer people, and there's so many things to do when you're a staff member at the Q Center, and seeing people kind of embrace that is really cool to see.
Live and breathe at Q Center.
Live, laugh, love, live, laugh, love, eat, sleep, breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but like, and seeing the staff members grow, as well as, you know, the students who come to the Q Center, there's a lot of people that I've seen a lot of times and seen them come back again, like just working, so long of the short of it is, working with students and working with staff and seeing how they grow throughout my time here has been really fulfilling, especially like when it comes to those staff and students, like when they ask me for advice, and that makes me feel like I can help just a little bit, just like 2%, 1%, just being able to like have that one conversation where, because that conversation can possibly change people's outlook on life, and I feel like having that one kind of tiny little fraction of seeing where they are going, like that's the most fun for me.
I see it. You work so hard. I see your impact on people, and I hope you're aware of your impact. You know, you don't just help a little, you help a lot, and you're so involved, and you're an amazing student too. And I'm just so grateful to take your time out of your day to come here and everything. But you know, those are most of my questions. So thank you so much, Eddie, for being here. To be real with us. Yeah.
I love it being real.
Yeah, I love being here with you too. So thank you, and thank you, Binghamton University, for joining us. Also, happy Halloween.
Happy
And have a
Halloween.
good day. Bye.